Good morning, HMSDC. Welcome, and welcome to Expo Day 2. Reimagine, reconnect, rise stronger. We had a great day yesterday for Day 1. Good interview with Russell Westbrook. Great for Rigel Awards. Excellent discussion during Biz Talk. Hope everybody enjoyed that. And of course, the Emerging 10 Awards. So another congratulations to all the award winners from yesterday. We have another exciting day for you today, starting off with a very special guest, which I'll introduce now. Roland Martin, renowned journalist. As you may know, Roland is a host and managing editor of Roland Martin Unfiltered, the first daily online show in history focused on news and analysis of politics, entertainment, sports, and culture from an explicitly African-American perspective. He has authored 3 books and contributed to several others throughout his career. Roland has been named 4 times by Ebony Magazine as one of the 150 most influential African-Americans in the U.S. Roland is a 4-time NAACP Image Award winner, being yielded as the best host twice over the last 3 years. In 2013, Roland was awarded Journalist of the Year by the National Association of Black Journalists for his extensive focus on voter suppression and other issues concerning African Americans during the 2012 presidential election. Before we let Roland take over, let me give you a couple of fun facts for Roland. Was reading his extensive bio, and when you're as accomplished as Roland is, that's not a small feat. So 2008, Texas A&M University Journalism Hall of Honor. He graduated from A&M in 1991. So he has spent some time here in Texas with us. Currently lives in Washington, D.C. And let me say something that he and I share. We're both life members of the great Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So with that, let me turn it over to my frat brother and esteemed guest, Roland Martin. Roland, off to you.
All right. I certainly appreciate it. Glad to see everyone here. Wish I was there in my hometown of Houston. It's always great to come back home to see my family and to see friends as well. But of course, COVID has a mind of its own. And so it is absolutely wise of us to do what we're doing virtually. It's actually, something that we were already doing. It's so interesting when this thing dropped. People were like, man, Roland, you've been doing this digital virtual stuff for a very long time. So this is right up your alley. And so that really has been the case since March. But still glad to be here and to speak on this very important issue. And I want to really get right to it because I really believe that we should be reframing this moment that we are in. And when I say reframe this moment, we have seen this sea change, if you will, across the country since the Memorial Day murder of Houstonian George Floyd. That took place, of course, in Minneapolis. And we have seen governmental agencies, cities, counties, state, federal, examine, if you will, their racial justice policies, examine what is happening inside of these companies, inside of these agencies. But we've also seen the exact same thing happen in corporate America. We have seen the kind of pressure that's been applied where you've had black employees and then you've had white allies, or as Jane Elliott calls them, she prefers the word partners, staying with them to raise a voice about what's been going on for so many years. But one of the concerns that I have, though, is that these companies are looking at this issue of race and inequity in the wrong way. And when I say the wrong way is you see these folks saying, we're going to make these investments in social justice organizations to deal with inequality. See, the problem with that is that also sounds to me like it's aid or charity. Now, let me unpack that. Africa has 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world right now. But when you talk about how folks look at the continent of Africa, they look at it as we're going to provide aid to African nations. Someone that provides aid is different than that someone who provides investment. Aid has a charitable connotation. Investment is far more business oriented and forward thinking. Aid sounds like we're helping you. Investment sounds like we are partnering with you. And so when I look at all of these announcements, I look at all of these different companies, and I'm talking about Adidas and YouTube and PayPal, and I mean, I can go on and on and on, all these different JP Morgan, all the different banks. I examine each one of these announcements looking for the language they are using to get a better understanding of really what their intent is. I believe what we should be doing is challenging these corporations in a much different way. What we should be asking of them is a criteria or a list of things that we're actually demanding. What I demand, and as Vice President Digital for the National Association of Black Journalists, the 3rd time I've been on our board of directors, when we're meeting with companies, when they come with their numbers, I'm like, no. I don't want to hear all that. I want to know your black board members. I want to know your black top level executives. I want to know your black senior executives. I want to know your black executives who are in position to be on a senior level. And I want to know what is exactly your minority supplier development. I want to know in terms of what companies are you doing business with and to what level you're doing business with. Because see, the issue that we're facing right now when it comes to businesses is this. We're facing the real issue of capacity. See, when someone told me, Roland, why do you keep saying we don't need any more black-owned businesses? I said, and mind you, when I was saying this, we had 1.9 million black-owned businesses in America. 1.8 million of those black-owned businesses only had one employee. They were doing an average revenue of $110,000. That was 7 years ago. Today, there are 2.6 million black-owned businesses. 2.5 million of those, and mind you, this is pre-COVID. We've lost a number, which speaks to the issue. 2.6 million black-owned businesses, 2.5 million have one employee. Of those 2.6 million, they're doing an average revenue of $54,000. So we have seen a net increase of 700,000 black-owned businesses, yet we have seen a net decrease of cutting in half of the average revenue. Is that actual progress? And the answer is no. So the answer deals with a capacity issue. And that is, are we growing businesses? Don't tell me how Black and Hispanic women are opening businesses at a faster rate than anybody else. The question is, are those businesses growing? Are they going from 1 to 5 to 10 to 20 to 50 employees? Are they going from 100,000 to 500,000 to 2 million to 5 million to 10 million in revenue? If they're not, all we're doing is playing a wonderful shell game. And so the challenge has to be far more aggressive in pushing companies to say, look, if we're going to change the economic condition, the way we have been doing it simply isn't good enough. I talked about the issue of aid and investment. And again, it's how I'm looking at sort of this moment that we're in. I've got tons of books all over here. I got more than 1,000 books over here. And I've been framing this way because I keep hearing the reckoning that we're in. Really, we should be changing our language where we should be operating not right now in what I call the third Reconstruction. The first Reconstruction took place from 1865 to 1877. That was in the period after the Civil War. You had the Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment. Of course, the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery, except in prisons. 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause. And the 15th Amendment, the issue dealing with the right to vote. Then, of course, you had the opening of the Freedmen's Bank. You had the Freedmen's Bureau of that particular effort to provide financial literacy and an economic plan for freed slaves. Lincoln gets assassinated 2 months after making that particular announcement. Johnson follows him and simply blows all that away. So the first Reconstruction really was one that dealt with laws, not necessarily economics. If you look at Skip Gates' documentary on the Reconstruction, freed slaves put in the modern day equivalent of $1.3 billion into the Freedmen's Bank. No blacks were able to even manage that money. The money was squandered and there was no bank bailout. So free slaves lost today's equivalent of $1.3 billion. Then we go through, of course, the Great Compromise of 1877 after a contested election in 1876. That compromise leads to 92 years of Jim Crow. You don't have a Civil Rights Act passed from 1875 until 1957. So then you go all the way to, of course, Brown versus Board of Education, which begins the second Reconstruction. So that decision in 54, Emmett Till gets lynched in 55. Montgomery bus boycott begins December 1st, 1955. That lasts, I'll push it through 1970. You have the assassination of King in 68. And then, of course, Nixon gets reelected. And then, of course, you have the affirmative action programs. So I'll push that period to 1970. So now you're dealing with the first one that was 10 to 12 years. Second one is 16 years. Now, W.B. Du Bois, in his book, Black Reconstruction, he really calls it 20 years, 1860 to 1880. That's how he frames it, the period of Reconstruction. These two periods of Reconstruction, arguably the most beneficial for African Americans and, by extension, people of color in history. Why do I say that? Because the very laws that we now are dealing with came out of those two periods. 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, and then Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65, Fair Housing Act of 1968. Those two periods put in place the pillars of sort of where we are. I told you about W.B. Du Bois' book on that. Today's Reconstruction expert as well is Eric Foner. Of course, his book calls it America's Unfinished. He calls it America's Unfinished Revolution. He dates it 1863 to 1877. But here is the one piece where both Reconstructions fell woefully short. Money. Laws were passed granting us citizenship rights. But when it came to the money, America turned a blind eye. I'll tell you about the failure of the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank in the first Reconstruction. In the second Reconstruction, if you actually take the time to study even King's writings, the last 5 years of his life, he fully understood it came down to an issue of economics. Here he was talking about all the issue of rights, but the last 5 years, it came down to money. The March on Washington speech, I Have a Dream speech, was really a radical economic speech. But the problem is that that's not really what this nation has always wanted to confront. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the money. If you go to Washington, D.C., folks, there's only one federal agency that shares along with the White House, the Department of the Treasury. You can literally take 100 steps and go out of the side of the building, the Treasury Department, and you'll be in the East Wing of the White House. That's all you need to know about America. White House is power. Treasury Department is money. Power, money, money, power. The problem has been for Black folks and people of color, that has not necessarily been what the nation has really wanted to deal with. I'm sitting here, and there's a really one of the greatest books, of course, is Dr. King's book, Where We Go From Here, Chaos or Community. And this is what he says, and this really ties into exactly what minority supplier development is all about. This is what he says. The practical cost of change for the nation up to this point has been cheap. The limited reforms have been obtained at bargain rates. There are no expenses, no taxes are required for Negroes to share lunch counters, libraries, parks, hotels, or other facilities with whites. Even the psychological adjustment is far from formidable. He goes on to explain that he says, quote, even the more significant changes involved in voter registration required neither large monetary nor psychological sacrifice. You go throughout this book, which is, again, one of the 3 greatest books I've ever read. And it was also his worst selling book. And there's a reason why. He keeps getting back to money. When we have these conversations about the condition of Black and brown people in this country, you always got to come back to the money. Which means that our organizations have got to be thinking far differently when we are trying to confront what is happening in this country. Take, for example, this debate that's going on right now in corporate and whole world, all these venture capitalists, they aren't investing in Black-owned businesses. They aren't spending, investing in Black firms and Hispanic firms, and 2% of all VC money is going to people of color. But y'all know what the problem with that is? Where does the VC money come from? You got venture capital money. Venture capital money coming from here. You're dealing with private equity. Who are the largest investors on Wall Street? Pension funds. What pension funds? Public worker pension funds. Police officers, firefighters, city workers, school teachers, county workers, state workers, federal government public workers. 45% of all federal workers are people of color. That means that white private equity firms are taking the money from the pension funds of people of color and investing it with other hedge funds, VCs, because the control of the investment in this country is 98% white, largely white men. So the money that the VCs are investing is coming from the folks here at the bottom, and they look like all of us. So I think we've got this thing reversed. We're trying to put pressure on the people at the top to invest in companies where the CEOs look like the folks at the bottom. No, what should be happening is we should be sitting here educating and pushing those very folks who are the pension fund holders to put pressure on their pension funds to say, you cannot be sitting here giving money to firms that don't look like me, and then the folks who don't invest in people who look like me. It comes down to the money. King lays it out. America has had no problem passing new laws. America's never once deal with the money. So they'll pass. Sure. Let's see what police reform we can do. Sure. Let's talk about banning chokeholds. Sure. Let's talk about all those things. But will you have the same level of intensity when it comes to the money? Don't think so. So the challenge for us has to change. That is, we must have organizations and leaders who walk into the room and make it clear. No. We're not here to talk about apprenticeships. We're not here to talk about internships. We are here to talk about the massive number of contracts that are being awarded, who they are going to, and how we are going to change this system. It requires those of us externally to also educate political leaders on how to use and flex their power to also lead to this change. I didn't bring this book down here, but there's a great biography on Maynard Jackson. The reason Atlanta today is the city that it is because Maynard Jackson used the power of the political office to change the economic condition of Black Atlanta, 1973. 0.0012% of all city contracts were going to African Americans. 0.0012% of all city contracts. Man, Jackson comes in, he's like, nah, this not gonna work. Then begins to put in policies and procedures to change it. Oh, white Atlanta was pissed. I'm talking about angry. He calls in the banks and he says, y'all got no Black board members. Oh, we can't find any. He's out. He says, city treasurer, step in here. Until they find some Black board members, pull the city's money out of their banks. Whoa, what are you doing? No. Y'all are not going to be the beneficiaries of deposits from the taxpayers of Atlanta if y'all can't find Black board members. Guess what they did? All of a sudden, they went out and found some Black board members. He did the exact same thing when it came to the banks and the contractors. Here's the deal, and y'all know this. Many of us can't float our businesses for 90 days to 180 days the way government pays or the way some corporations pay. We simply can't afford it. He said, banks, he said, they have been awarded a city contract. We're going to pay them. So therefore, you should extend lines of credit to them to allow for them to be able to float their businesses until we're able to pay. Banks, no. City treasurer, come in. Take our money out. Oh, damn, there you go again. Because his grandfather taught him the 3 B's, the ballot, the book, and the buck. The ballot, the book, and the buck. He used the power of political office to change the economic condition. How the demands that we make have to also change. But in that demand, and see, now I'm about to step on some folks' toes, and if I do, sorry. It also means we're going to have some courageous leaders in our organizations who are making demands of corporate America and government who are fearless. Let me say that again. You have got to ensure that your leadership is fearless, that your leadership isn't accepting of small crumbs or small coins. We make this joke in church where they say, I don't want to hear any jangling in the giving plate. Paper don't jangle. Well, that actually has to be our mindset. Because I think part of the problem is that too many of us who are advocates or who are supposed to be advocates of Black and minority businesses, we have been we've got to send people to the table who understand that, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand, never have and never will. That means we've got to send people to the table who are willing to sit across from folk and look them in the eye and say, I'm not satisfied. I love that scene from the movie Malcolm X when they go to the police station, check on Brother Johnson, and he's been beaten and bleeding. And then Malcolm X, played by Denzel Washington, says, get an ambulance. And then they cut to the scene where a white cop comes up to him and he says, okay, you came and got what you wanted. Now it's time to leave. And he says, no, I'm not satisfied. I believe that too many of us have been satisfied with what we've gotten right now. I believe too many of us have been unwilling to push as hard as we can because we're scared we're not going to get a contract. Well, if you ain't getting one now, what makes you think that's going to change? I'm sorry. We're 23 years away from this nation becoming a nation majority people of color. I am not willing to accept the excuses that we have been given for quite some time. Now is the moment. This is the moment where this generation has to use its collective power in saying we're not satisfied with only a handful of companies being in the $1 billion club when it comes to minority supplier development. That number should be 30, 50, 100, 500. We should not be accepting of companies that are taking our dollars from our community, happily taking the money, but then not reinvesting it in our companies. That is challenging them at their core. And you know what? That might mean calling out some Black and Hispanic and Asian and Native American executives who work for companies who are designed to be the folk there to keep some of us from getting too loud. And see, I know that might be a little radical for some people, but the only measurement that I have is simply, do we have more this year than we got last year? That's really what you should be saying in Houston. Do we have more this year than last year? And how much more do we have? Because if we're talking about a cosmopolitan, diverse city, one of the most diverse cities in the country, well, then the money should be diverse. See, we're not going to be able to change anything if all we are doing is accepting of exactly what has been going on and this notion of incremental change. The first Reconstruction was 12 years. The second one was 16 years. I believe right now we are operating. This one right here needs to be at a bare minimum 20 years. The first one did not deal with money. The second one did not deal with money. Don't fall for the okie doke and allow the third Reconstruction to look like the first two. I don't want just new laws dealing with police reform and social injustice. I want economic capital, and that means contracts, and that means investment. That's what we want. And if you don't make your demands plain, no one will even understand what they are. Make this about the money and hold folk accountable. And lastly, before we go to Q&A, and again, this might be touchy, but there's a reason it's called unfiltered. Stop giving damn awards to companies for doing minuscule work. Because what they do is they take that award as cover for the little stuff they are doing. No, if you want an award, you're going to have to earn it. We got to stop settling for small dollars. Thanks a bunch.
All right, Roland, thank you for those inspiring notes. I hope everybody took notes, as I did, of those remarks. So let's see what we have as far as any questions coming up from the group. Roland, I would say while we're waiting on the question, if you could talk about the books that you showed real quick again, so we make sure.
One of the most profound. I mean, again, just to understand. I think I went through probably 3 highlighters with this book here. This doctor, you probably can't see it here, but trust me, I wore out 2 or 3 highlighters. This book, Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. I think I guarantee I've sold more copies of this book than the King children. I have referenced this book for more than a decade. Reading this, you swear King wrote this last year. And it was the last book he wrote. It was his worst selling book, and it wasn't published 10 years after his death. And I think by design, because what he's talking about here is not just monetary policy, but he's also talking about organization and how we get there and how we achieve that. And there was something that he wrote in here, and I have used this in numerous speeches because it speaks to organization. And I know everyone here is not African American, but that's fine. But what he lays out here is, I think, important, because what he said, and this is something that's important because I think it has to change our mindset of our organizations. And because you are an organization, this is why I'm reading this, because really he was speaking to you when he wrote it in 1967. This is what he said. He said, there are already structured forces in the Negro community that can serve as the basis for building a powerful united front. The Negro Church, the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional organizations. This is what he says. Too many Negro social and professional groups have degenerated into snobbishness and a preoccupation with frivolities and trivial activity. Why is that important? Because what he is saying is these are all entities that are organized and have infrastructure. So the person who's out there as an individual, they really can't come to the table with significant force and power. Okay. But an organization can, because what you're doing is you're bringing scale to the table. And that's important as we talk about how do we demand change. The other book, the first one was W.B. Du Bois' book, Black Reconstruction in America, 1860 to 1880. Which really gives you, and it's amazing how many people have just no clue about the Reconstruction period. But the Reconstruction period really changed this nation in significant ways. And then, of course, Eric Foner, his book is Reconstruction, America's Unfinished Revolution, 1863 to 1877. And so Manny Marable has another book on the Reconstruction period, but an excellent one as well. And I have it right here with me. Reverend Dr. William Barber has one called The Third Reconstruction. He talks about Moral Mondays and what they did in North Carolina and how fusion politics. And fusion politics is really what your organization also is. Fusion politics is when you have Black folks and white folks and Latinos and others who are working together to change the political dynamic. We're talking about the economic dynamic. That's what we're talking about right here. And I just think that at some point, we must really change our perspective and not be afraid. I don't have it down here. I wish I did. One of the greatest, you can just write this down, Martin Deppe, D-E-P-P-E, wrote a book called Operation Breadbasket. He was on the executive committee, Operation Breadbasket in Chicago. And he details how Operation Breadbasket doesn't get talked about a lot. Breadbasket morphed into Rainbow Push Coalition, Reverend Jackson. But they changed the economic. If you want to understand really how we all these minority supplier development councils and our businesses, you got to go back to Breadbasket. How they use the power of churches to do memorandum of understandings with companies when it came not just to hiring of Black folks in Chicago and other cities, but also they deposited money in Black banks. They had to hire Black companies for work as well. The structure of how they achieved that was so important. It was an idea that Reverend Leon Sullivan gave Dr. King. Dr. King asked him to come to Atlanta to present to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He did. They adopted that as part of their own organization. And that is what changed economically. So the reason you had these number of Black millionaires, the Black hair care companies and others, a lot of them came out of Chicago. It's because of Operation Breadbasket. Read Martin Depp's book because he has all the notes and how they built that. The greatest mistake that he said, though, the lack of follow-up. He said we put all this work into organizing and striking the agreement. He said, but we didn't have enough people to then follow up to make sure that they were doing what they promised. And that is what too many of us also fail. We fail with the monitoring and the follow-up to make sure that we maximize the opportunity.
Thank you for that, Roland. There's a question that came up. Is there a national organization that tracks some of the Black business statistics that you talked about? Black Chamber Inc. You have them, but that's also part of the issue because you don't necessarily have. I mean, you have the government does to some degree when it comes to your census data. That's one of the things that they also use. We do need a better tracking of information. But see, this to me is I think what should be is your organization. And that is, and again, where it's the measurement. See, where companies get away with this is they don't like the measurement. We had a meeting with a media company and we were talking and I said, so I need to told them employees. I didn't know how many Black employees. I want to know Black executives. And, well, there's some numbers we can't reveal. I said, well, how are we going to track it? So how are we going to track it? So we can't track progress if we don't know what the base level is. And so you, as an entity, you should be saying, what data do we have? What do we have there in Houston? That is, how many companies do we have? Where are they right now in November 2020? And so as a part of your expo, you should have your state of address, meaning this is where we were in November 2020. This is where we are in November 2021. What was the growth? What was the growth? And I don't want, not general. I'm talking about it needs to be specific. What was the growth in what sectors? You should break up y'all in Houston should break this thing down to the sectors, which you probably already do. But now all of a sudden, where's the growth in the sectors? So if I have technology, then I have construction, then let's say I have IT, then let's say I have PR, communications, whatever you want to have it. If I now have broken down my companies and sectors, now if I'm tracking it, now granted, people got to be voluntarily providing information and be honest about it, but this is why it's important. Now all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, how in the hell did we decrease and digress in two of these areas? We increased in one. What's going on? We cannot change anything without the data. So as a Houston group, y'all shouldn't focus on what they're doing in Dallas. What's happening in San Antonio? Your deal should be, here's the deal. If what I'm talking about not happening somewhere else, that's fine. This is how you're going to do it in Houston, where you now can become the model for other folks to go, whoa, I see how we doing that. Now, last point on this one. You also have to, and again, how you do. So I'll ask this. And if you can, so you have this expo. How often are you also meeting as an entity? I just want to understand your structure. That's what I'm interested in, your structure.
So a couple things that we do here in Houston is we actually at our Rigel Awards yesterday gave out our Minority Business Development Award. So we have corporate members and our MBEs every year in January to report how much money they spent with minority-owned businesses the previous year. And we recognize those entities who spent, the top 3 entities who spent money. We also aggregate that so that we could see what progress are we making with Houston businesses. So we're not asking them to report their numbers nationally, but what are they doing with Houston MBEs so that we could see, are we making progress in terms of how much money is being spent with those minority businesses here in Houston.
And how are you breaking that down? How are you breaking down? Is it broken down in general, or is it broken down by sector?
We break it down by individual company, and then we have each company by sector. So based on when they get certified, our national organization has 13 sectors that it puts businesses in. And so we're able to capture it by the type. So we know by ethnicity, we know by business size, the way we use and classify our businesses into 4 classes. So a class 1 is a business with revenue under $1 million. Class 2 is $1 million to 10. Class 3 is 10 to 50, and class 4 is 50 and up. So one of the things that we're working on now is trying to figure out, because those categories are so big, how do we track the progress of businesses moving from class 1 to class 2 to class 3 to class 4, speaking of what you were saying in terms of growing those companies. And we have several that I see on this call today who have moved from a class 1 to class 4. But how do we make that and track that so that we can continue to help them to grow through those stages? Right. It's not going to be, you're not going to move from a 1 to a 2 in a year necessarily. So how do we continue to make that progress and track those progress by those companies and use that as a measurement to see how we're growing minority businesses? Do
you also have what I call a hit list of 20, 25 companies that are woeful with their numbers who you're targeting?
No, we don't have a list of those companies that we say, okay, here are the ones that we're targeting that growth for. We are asking.
No. What I mean, I'm talking about the major companies in Houston that are very weak in this area with minority supplier development.
Oh, absolutely. So we're trying to get them engaged and involved. And I think one of the good things that we're doing, or that I believe is a good thing that we're doing, is our corporations are pushing more of their primes, some of them who are participating in this expo, to be able to do business with other minority businesses to grow them. So if you have a contract with another large company, that you engage that large company in making sure that they're creating opportunities for MBE. So what I'm saying is,
so let me go back to the companies that are not doing it. Let's say, do you have a target list of, let's say, 25 companies? And they could be, banks, so they could be, doesn't matter what they are. And then are you as an entity going to them and saying, look, you guys are woeful when it comes to minority supplier development. And are you bringing others to the table with you and meeting with them to say that you cannot be operating in a diverse city and then have these type of numbers, and we want to see immediate changes to what you're doing, I'm saying, are you targeting folks that way?
No, we're targeting more industry, not company specific. And so we're looking at industries where we have lower participation in the organization. So like aerospace or medical. And we're asking those companies who are involved in our council to help us to make those inroads and introductions and have those meetings. But we haven't laid out.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. That is not, I'll say this from my perspective. That isn't how you're going to achieve the most effectiveness. I think what has to happen is those companies that are woeful in those areas, you must go to them as an entity saying, look, this is who we are. This is what we do. Our goal is obviously to increase capacity for our minority businesses. And these are your numbers. Then also, I think what you do as an organization, that's where your alliances come in. So let me just give you what we did. So NABJ, we're the world's largest minority media organization, 4,000 members. Okay. When we went after CNN had no black executive producers, VPs, SVPs, EVPs, or direct reports to CEO Jeff Zucker. So when I put our action plan together, when we went after them, and CNN just blew us off. Okay, cool. So here's what happened. I'm a life member of Alpha. Alpha's dropped a letter of support calling on CNN. That led to a story. Delta's dropped a letter of support. That led to a story. CBC dropped a letter of support. We use the other organizations to stand with us in terms of going after them. In 3 months, 5 African Americans were appointed either for executive producer all the way up to EVP direct report. Because what we did was we didn't just use our power, we brought in others to stand with us and work with us. So the thing is, and again, so I got somebody to say, we don't need to beat up with HMSDC corporations. We need to bring in companies who are not engaging with HMSDC supply diversity. No, what happens is companies need to know that you're serious and need to understand that your numbers are bad. Most folks don't know. Would you like for them to know? To me, I'm being very serious. I would be working with black media outlets right there in Houston, minority media outlets, and say, I'll be doing a report card. I think you as an entity should do an annual report card. These are the companies, you already got it with your awards. These are the companies that get A's, B's, C, D's, and here are the companies that get F's. Last I checked, don't nobody like getting an F on a report card, especially when it's public. What I'm arguing here is, if somebody said we can only do that with leverage, what is our leverage? Your leverage is light. Your leverage is when, look, the companies that are doing awful keep doing awful because don't nobody know. Your job is to make them known. Because when you make somebody known who ain't doing well, it's amazing how those numbers change. But that's where having a clear strategy and having your partners with you, again, when I say partners, I'm talking about external organizations that also can help you. So imagine if you're a company and all of a sudden HMSDC is trying to meet with you and y'all getting blown off. All right. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, they hear from the Urban League, from the NAACP, from the Alphas and Deltas and Kappas and Omegas and Iotas and Sigma Gamma Rho and AKAs, Zetas. All of a sudden, they begin to hear from the links. They begin to hear. All of a sudden, oh, hell, I'm now hearing from 10, 15, 20, 100 organizations that are black, that are Latino, that are, oh hell, now the ball game has changed. The Frederick Douglass said, agitate, agitate, agitate. And I know for a lot of us, especially those of us who are in corporate circles, and we say, but we don't want to sit here and tick folks off. Right now, if you get 0, what do you actually have to lose?
So now, Roland, with that, how can we get our politicians to kind of understand and help us?
First, you got to teach them. Here's the whole deal. Let me just be real clear. And this just, look, I've been county government reporter in Austin, city hall reporter in Fort Worth. I've covered I've covered politicians everywhere, Dallas, Chicago, DC. We need to stop thinking that these politicians are smart. Let me explain that. You know the intricacies of business, contracting, RFPs. They don't know that. They don't. When I was in Chicago, I was talking to a state rep, and he was talking about contract. I said, Representative, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I said, do you understand that your ass can pass a law in Illinois in the legislature, and it's a bureaucrat who's going to write the damn law, who's going to write the rules, and you don't even know? I said, do you even understand the rules of prime contracting? I said, where you can't bid on a prime contract unless you've been a prime contractor before, which means that if you've only been a subcontractor, you can never bid on a prime contract. That's why when they were doing a rebuild of City College of Chicago, his brother, I was running Chicago Defender. He came into my office and he laid all these plans. I started hitting his ass on prime contracts. And I was like, so why can't you break those contracts up? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, this is what Maynard Jackson did in Atlanta. This is what they did. Dude was looking at me like I was like, yes. I said, that's a $65 million contract. No black construction company in the city can bid on that. I said, because they don't have the bonding capacity to do so. Yet if you take that contract and break it up to 4 different contracts, say it's called unbundling, then they can compete for the 20 million contract as opposed to the 65 million. Brother looked at me like I was crazy. I said, now, y'all want our newspaper support for this project, you better go back and revise your program. Because I know the game. So education has to be a key where you're walking politicians through something that's in their own area they don't know a damn thing about. You're going to have to literally say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so. I just did this with a member of Congress just the other day. They had no idea if the federal government spends $5 billion over 5 years on advertising and black media firms got $51 million out of $5 billion over 5 years. They had no idea. They had no idea how the black ad agencies were frozen out and the contracts kept going to the larger white ad agencies, which also was impacting the black ad agencies. They had no idea because they passed laws and it's like, okay, y'all, we passed a law. No. Who is the agency that's actually enforcing it and writing the laws and writing the RFP? So what now? So they don't even understand how it's even written. The census, Young and Rubicam, met with the Congressional Black Caucus and said, we're not going to buy any print advertisement with a circulation under 50,000. That's 95% of all black newspapers. Right there, cut out. So the first question, I'm sorry, how did you arrive at the 50,000? How is that your cutoff? See, without challenging them on that, now you don't know how to fight. And so you have to educate political leaders who actually don't know jack about how the process and how the game actually works. And you have to get the politician to say, oh, hold up. So new company, follow me here. Again, I cover City Hall. This company wants to move to Houston. You're looking for tax abatements. Hold up. I need to see your minority supply development numbers. Oh, so y'all want tax abatements to us to bring your company here? You're going to have to give us a minority supplier development concessions. So you have to be fully aware of also all these different moving parts. So when a company is trying to take from Harris County Commissioner's Court, from the City Hall, from the state, you got to say, we're not going to give them a lot of taxpayer money to move here if they also ain't doing right in minority supplier development. This is the last point here. Go to the next question. Why is the NRA the most powerful, used before they all had financial issues, the most powerful lobbying group? Because they don't give a damn about nothing but the Second Amendment. You've never seen the NRA release a statement on LGBT, on affirmative action. You can be a black transgender person with purple hair. Your ass love guns, you in the NRA. They only care about guns. We have to have single issue organizations who say, this is our focus. Your focus, there in Houston, minority supply development. We can stand with you on some other stuff, that's fine. That's not our main focus. Because if you aren't the agency that is primarily fighting for these suppliers, who else? So that has to frame your view on how you educate and how you advocate.
So now, Roland, we've got the corporate view, we've got the governmental view. You talked a little bit about pension funds and other moneymakers. Last word on how to activate that audience.
Well, the first thing is, before I can go outside of the organization and make demands, I've got to be real clear on my strategy inside. When I interview, if you go to my YouTube channel, there's an interview that I did with Reverend Dr. James Lawson. If any of y'all saw the John Lewis funeral, he gave, everybody talking about Obama's speech. That was nice. James Lawson gave the eulogy. James Lawson was the architect of the Nashville movement. He was the one who trained John Lewis and C.T. Vivian and James Bevel and Diane Nash. This is what he told me. He said, we spent 3 months trying to figure out why we even here. Then we spent 3 months saying what we're going to do. Intense discussion. Now, I'm not saying you need to spend the next 6 months, but the first piece has to be internally. What are we willing, how aggressive are we willing to be to create radical economic change in Houston? I'm using that word specifically, radical. There may be some people in your organization who are Black, who are Asian, who are Latino, who Native American, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. Here's the whole deal though. I don't know of anybody who's actually been able to achieve results in any of these areas and they've soft shooted. You can't show me the evidence. This is about hardcore dollars. There are people who want you to go slow. They want you to be incremental. No time for incremental. This is the moment that you must seize. There cannot be a discussion about Black and minority business in Houston and y'all not at the table. Let me repeat that again. Let me repeat it. I'm telling y'all, I have dealt with this all over America. I got mad respect for all of these civil rights groups. I will not have a conversation with civil rights groups about business with folk who ain't never had a business. Which means that you must elevate your organization and say, yes, there is not going to be a business conversation in Houston if we are not at the table. Which now means that you have to go back as an organization. And now, I won't say recalibrate or reassess, but I will go back and say, who are we? What are we really trying to do? And how aggressive do we want to be in getting there? And once you do that, you then create your action plan to say, this is how we're going to target the politicians. This is how we're going to target our existing business partners. And this is how we're going to target the folk out there who have woeful minority supplier development numbers. And we're going to also teach our people to use their power, because that's who you employ. That's who's out there buying products. So if you got this company that is reliant on Black dollars and Hispanic dollars and Asian dollars, this is the customer base, and they're not doing business with those folk, you cannot be afraid of telling those same customers, as Dr. King said, if y'all need to go back and listen to not the last 3 minutes of his mountaintop speech, but listen to the full 43 minute and 16 second speech where he said point blank, he said we have to redistribute the pain. We are not going to do business with people who do not do business with us. That's very aggressive, but I'm just simply saying, if you show me an example where Black and brown people have gotten anything in America without making demands, I'll change my view. I don't think I'll be changing my view.
thank you very much for the time and the wisdom. We appreciate you hanging in here with us. I know it was a lot of your time, but appreciate you extending it with us and staying and hanging in there. So
no problem. I'm easy to reach. I don't have gatekeepers. And so I've talked about this stuff and advocated on my show constantly. So folks, y'all get my email is my name, Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Again, Roland@RolandSMartin.com. The backup is Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. So I can easily be reached. And again, there are other folks who I know who are doing this. And so if you're looking for to partner with some other people, just send me an email and we'll go from there. And look forward to being back in my hometown of Houston. And I could not resist this year. I'm going to if I grew up in Houston. My grandmother had a catering business. My brother now runs our family catering business. If y'all heard of Lamont Catering, Reginald Martin, who's now over the Greater Houston Partnership, you can elect the chairman of one of them group. That's my brother. And so looking for a black-owned catering company, call Reginald Martin. Trust me, the food is great because my daddy taught him.
I just want to thank you on behalf of HMSDC for spending time with us. And next time you're able to come to Houston, please let us know. We'd love to have you and engage. And I will tell you that the chat has been blowing up. And I think that that's why we wanted you here. We wanted to really talk about what we could do. This conference is our big annual conference. We talked about how to engage with the disparity studies on the government side, but I think you made some really valid points on the private sector side for us to do the same thing and drive that same change there. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I think that this has been exciting. And I think based on the chat, I know that everybody's sort of geared up and excited. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Y'all take care.
Bye.
All right. And we will switch over now to Rigel Awards Day 2. So stay tuned. Welcome to Expo 2020 Day 2 Rigel Awards. I hope that you found Day 1 of Expo inspiring and our keynote address this morning from renowned journalist Roland Martin on the role of today's business leaders. Whether you are a corporate exhibitor or a minority business owner, I hope that you have begun to reimagine what you can do to address systemic economic inequity. Reconnect with communities of color to be impactful and chart a path to drive social change so that we all rise stronger. By doing this, we will build thriving MBE suppliers that meet our needs today and address our challenges tomorrow. So we thank you again for taking time today to celebrate the diversity and value those recognized today contribute to the enrichment of the minority business development community. I would be remiss if I did not recognize the members of the HMSDC Board of Directors. Vice Chairman James Brownrigg, Vice President and General Manager, Turner Construction Company. Treasurer Eileen Perillo, VP Finance Unconventionals, Shell Exploration and Production Company. Secretary David Wilson, Managing Director, Resources and Technology Consulting, Accenture. Anthony Curtis, Business Development Manager, TechSync Technologies. Keith Davis, Publisher, Vastkey Media Group. Tim Finley, Chief Financial Officer, Port Houston. Andy Icken, Chief Development Officer, City of Houston. Bill Keys, Global Logistics Director, Fluor Corporation. Nadeem Bazar, Chief Executive Officer, Custom Technology Solutions. Paula Mendoza, President, Possible Missions. John Slanina, Chief Procurement Officer, Centerpoint Energy. Troy Taylor, President, Taylor Construction Management. Calvin Wright, Chief Procurement Officer, University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. And last but certainly not least, Ingrid Robinson, HMSDC President.
I want to again thank our sponsors, which made yesterday and today's event possible. Corporate Platinum sponsors, BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Shell Oil Company. Our MBE Platinum sponsors, Computer Decisions, SNR Creative, Twice Media Productions, Virtual Fusions, Worldwide Technology. Our gold sponsors, Motiva Enterprises, United Airlines, Our MBE Gold sponsors: Daily Thermetrics, Taylor Construction Management, Wiseman Consultants. Our Silver sponsors: ConocoPhillips, Icon Information Consultants, Phillips 66, Port Houston. Our MBE Silver sponsor: GHG Corporation. Corporate Bronze sponsors: CenterPoint Energy, Direct Energy, Entergy, Fluor Corporation, HEB, Houston Community College Systems, J.E. Dunn Construction, Metropolitan Transit Authority, or Metro, Turner Construction, Vistra Energy. Our MBE Bronze sponsors: K Business Solutions, Myrtle Consulting Group. Our media sponsors: Butler Wiseman, Houston Business Journal, Houston Defender, KPRC Channel 2, Minority Business News Texas, Subcontractors USA. Let's give our sponsors a virtual round of applause. The Rigel star is approximately 10 million years old and is the seventh brightest star in the Orion constellation, often referred to as the Hunter Orion. It can be seen by the naked eye in the evening sky from November to March. The Rigel star is 6,000 times hotter than the Earth's sun, which gives it its beautiful blue color. Rigel is a rare blue supergiant star that shines with a luminosity of approximately 40,000 times that of the sun. As we begin today's award ceremony, let's remember there are Rigel stars among us. These Rigels radiate characteristics that allow them to stand out among other stars. These Rigels have remained luminous during times of economic prosperity and economic recession. The Houston Minority Supplier Development Council would like to continue with our presentation of the Rigel Awards to those minority business enterprises and corporate leaders who have outshined all others in their commitment to minority business development. Now it's time to officially name the rest of our brightest stars, the Rigel Awards. To announce the recipients of the HMSDC Supplier of the Year Awards, we begin with Linda Graves, Vice Chair of HMSDC's Supplier Diversity Advisory Committee, and she's Manager of Supplier Diversity for CenterPoint Energy.
It is an indeed honor for me to announce the recipient of the 2020 Supplier of the Year Award, Class 3. This company will join a growing list of some of the Houston's most prominent and successful businesses. The purpose of the Supplier of the Year Award is to recognize an outstanding supplier with the Houston Minority Supplier Development Council and to encourage a more competitive and successful business environment for all council members. In the category of annual sales between 10 million and 50 million, the Minority Business Enterprise 2020 Supplier of the Year Award goes to Today's Business Solutions, Priscilla Luna, President and CEO, and Melly Jimenez, owner. Please join me in congratulating Today's Business Solution Supplier of the Year, Class 3.
A fun fact about me, the owner, is that I like to celebrate every holiday, every birthday with friends and family, and of course my wonderful employees, and they all love that. They think it's fun. It's fun. Our customer service outlook is to give 100% and go that extra mile for our customers to ensure that they are getting excellent customer service through consistency, problem solving, and dependability. Our customers are our assets. As you may know, our industry is very competitive, so we work with our customers by design, and we work from that. Every customer is different, so we build different programs to accommodate their needs.
It is also my pleasure to announce the winner of the Prime Supplier of the Year. This award is presented to the Prime Supplier of HMSDC corporate member who has supported that member's supplier diversity efforts by significantly expanding opportunities for MBEs along the supply chain. We are pleased to award the 2020 Prime Supplier of the Year to Juhi Hajua, President and CEO of Wiseman Consultants. Please give a round of applause to Wiseman Consultants.
My name is Juhi Ahuja, and I am President and CEO of Wiseman Consultants. We are an IT firm. We do IT staffing, managed services, projects, and microsourcing. And we have offices in Houston and in Hyderabad, India. It is really a privilege and honor to be nominated for this prestigious award. I'd like to thank Centerpoint Energy, Constance Jones, Ingrid Robinson, and everybody at HMSDC for honoring and awarding this award to Wiseman Consultants. Really appreciate the gesture and feels very good to be nominated.
It's only human to care for those we love and also help light their way. It's why last year Chevron invested over $10 billion to bring affordable, reliable, ever cleaner energy to America.
The Procurement Champion of the Year Award is presented annually to a company representative that buys, uses, and/or influences the procurement of products and/or services, and who has done the most to promote business opportunities for MBEs. The winner of the 2020 Procurement Champion of the Year Award is Joshua King of ExxonMobil. Please give a warm round of applause to Joshua for being a champion of supplier diversity.
HMSDC, thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be selected as the 2020 Procurement Champion of the Year. I'm inspired by the overall leadership at ExxonMobil. We've had supplier diversity programs in place since 1971, and our current initiatives are more ambitious than ever. Personally, I'm most passionate about the innovation and overall value proposition that diverse suppliers bring to the table. I represent the procurement category family of craft labor. And within that category family alone, from 2018 to 2019, we have increased our spending with minority businesses 59%. That's a big increase in opportunities for MBEs and a big increase in value for ExxonMobil. Thank you again for this award, which recognizes the individual efforts that are made by advocates such as myself. There are many more advocates throughout the entire company who also deserve credit. We're all excited to see what we can do going forward, working with HMSDC and the terrific minority businesses.
The final award to be presented by MBEIC today recognizes the major corporation or government agency on the local level that, in the opinion of minority business owners, has best evidence its commitment to minority business development. We are pleased to announce Shell Oil Company as the 2020 National Corporation of the Year winner. Congratulations on the behalf of MBEs of HMSDC.
Supplier diversity is essential, I think, especially now. It provides such a door for economic development in a community. I always tell people, when you think about the community, it's so much more than just a contract. When you think about the tentacles that that simple contract has established in a community, minority and diverse suppliers have usually the tendency of hiring other people that represent their same demographic. So you're thinking about them getting an opportunity to build up the workforce. And they also have a tendency of hiring other suppliers and building up their own supply chains. And then before you know it, there's a Starbucks coming in the community, and there's some type of educational center or maybe a grocery store being built. So it's so much beyond just a mere contract. And what better opportunity than to utilize this creative, innovative force of individuals that's strategically placed out in the market to help us to meet tomorrow's biggest problems.
More than ever, the world needs disinfectants, face masks, surgical gowns, and IV bags. We've increased our production of the raw materials they're made from and reconfigured our operations to make medical-grade hand sanitizer for the first time. Because everything we can do to help those on the front lines is nothing compared to what they're doing to help all of us.
The Each One Reach One Award recognizes the MBE that recruited and assisted the most MBEs to become certified suppliers of HMSDC. This year's winner is Vicki Samander with Global Force USA. Please join me in thanking Vicki for her outstanding support.
I've been active 20 years or close to it, and I can't even begin to tell you how many MBEs I've recruited for the council. I never actually kept up with it, but I mean, anywhere I go, and if I talk to someone that has their own business and I know that they can qualify, I always ask, hey, are you a member of HMSDC? And so just bunches. I can't even begin to say how big of an honor it is for me. Not that I won the award for something that I love to do. It's just, I just don't even have any words. It all started when I went to a meeting at TSU. After hearing Constance, I don't even know what the words were that she said, but it was the passion that she had at that meeting talking about minority business enterprises that just sparked a fire in me. And then, of course, years of listening to Dick advocate, and it's just something that it was like when a match is struck, it just ignited a fire in me. It's just never gone out. The more and more I see minority businesses coming into their own, doing great things. It's just such an honor to be a part of something like that.
Our next set of awards recognizes those MBE suppliers who support other MBEs by reporting the largest annual expenditures with other HMSDC certified MBEs. We are excited to recognize the first recipients of the MBE to MBE Award, B. Jackson Enterprises.
I directly attribute my success to my parents. They've been a guiding light for me from growing up in inner city New Orleans. They both stressed education, and that stressing of education allowed me to go and get my bachelor's in civil engineering and then work at an amazing company. And then I had an opportunity to get an MBA from MIT. So each one of those steps can be directly attributed to their love of education and them instilling that into me. Two of my driving factors can really be traced back to two of the 6 values of our company. One of the things we're really focused in on is performance. As a MBE and as a company, we want to perform the best we can perform for our clients so that they're a marketing arm of our business. And the other success factor is loyalty. While I was an Army officer, we had an anagram. It was called leadership. The L in that anagram was for loyalty. And that's something I really express to my employees, to our clients, and also to our contractors who have chosen to work with us.
Petro Amigo Supply.
I believe a lot of it was from my background at home. I grew up in a fairly large family, in a ranching community environment where pretty much we had to do everything we needed to do to make it through the day. But I think success for me was basically just getting up every day, putting one foot in front of the other, and going through that pace every day and not looking back. Most of the things that I saw in my 33 years in business was persistence and perseverance. There's a lot of things that we as entrepreneurs, business owners face, and sometimes you don't have a whole lot of guidance or support outside the home family, but I think those two are probably the most important in my success.
Today's Business Solutions.
I attribute our success to our wonderful employees. They believe in the same mission that TBS does, and we work towards the same goals. To me, that is success. Two of my driving factors are family and customers. Family is my number one drive, and without customers, we wouldn't be here today. So those are my two driving factors.
Please give a resounding round of applause to our MBE to MBE award winners. Earning the distinction of an accountability champion is more than words. It is making a lasting impression and, in some cases, changing the trajectory of MBEs through growth and development of their firms. The Accountability Champion Award is an important measurement of our overall effectiveness in minority business development. It assists us in gauging how we are impacting and the growth and development of MBE utilization. This year's Accountability Champions reported over $427 million spent with HMSDC MBEs, an 8.5% increase in expenditures over 2018. This is very impressive. This year's Corporate Accountability Champions are BP, Centerpoint, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Metro, Motiva, Phillips 66, Shell Oil Company, Southern Tire Mart, UT MD Anderson Cancer Center, Turner Construction, Vistra Energy. This year's MBE Accountability Champions are American HVAC Services, Bickham Services Unlimited, B. Jackson Enterprises, Candelaria Reyes Consulting, Genesis Cabling, K Business Solutions, Lopez Negrete, Petro Amigo Supply, Polito Transport, TechSync Technologies, Today's Business Solutions. I look forward to the day in which we can boast $1 billion in spend among HMSDC's corporate members and MBEs. We want to continue the growth of expenditures with MBE firms through both corporate to MBE spend and MBE to MBE spend. Please join me in giving our accountability champions a large and appreciative round of applause.
Shell's purpose is to provide more and cleaner energy as the world's demand continues to grow. At the same time, society is moving towards a lower carbon energy system to tackle climate change and meet the goal of the Paris Agreement. Today's energy system includes increasing amounts of renewables, but it still largely relies on fuels that release greenhouse gases. This reliance needs to change. Shell is a large company, providing some 3% of the world's energy, and we want to play our part. This is what's behind our net carbon footprint ambition, to reduce the carbon intensity of our energy products in step with society's progress towards meeting the goal of the Paris Agreement. Our net carbon footprint includes the emissions associated with the energy products we sell. Around 15% of those emissions are caused by getting our products to customers, including during production, manufacture, and transportation. The remaining 85% of emissions are generated by our customers when they use our energy products. So, our ambition includes those emissions too. Achieving our net carbon footprint ambition will mean making our operations more efficient. It will also mean changing the mix of what we sell. More cleaner burning, lower carbon natural gas, more renewable energy, and more biofuels. We will also store away more emissions underground and invest in forests and wetlands which absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Our net carbon footprint ambition will mean changing what we sell over time, and the Shell of the future could be a radically different company as a result.
The Chairman's Award is amongst the most prestigious awards presented by HMSDC. The Chairman's Award recognizes a corporate member or MBE supplier that, in the Chair's opinion, emulates the best traits of an active representative of HMSDC. The winner of this award will have exhibited the can-do spirit that is exemplified through active participation in the Council. It is that commitment to the mission of the organization that will inspire others to have greater impact on the organization. The recipients of this year's award is Tom Wren of Global XLR for the ongoing commitment and donation of critical PPE equipment to HMSDC, its MBEs, and other affiliate organizations to ensure that MBEs had the life-saving PPE needed to keep the businesses open at the beginning of COVID-19.
Hi there, I'm so honored to receive the HMDC Chairman of the Board Award. HMDC has been the single most important organization for me for the last 20 years. My previous company, Soft USA, was certified through HMDC. As a result, we got more than 200 corporate and government customers, and it was acquired later on. And then at that point, I started a new company, AY Global, providing supply management software, supply to bid, and global sourcing services for corporations, government, hospitals, and a lot of casinos. And so far this year, we've got about $5 million in revenue, mostly PPE sales directly. And in addition to that, we help a number of other MBEs to receive about $20 million in sales. Again, I'm so grateful to HMDC for this prestigious award. Thank you.
Congratulations to all our 2020 Rigel Star Award winners. It has been truly an honor to be selected by this group to be recognized among so many committed corporations and successful minority-owned businesses. Thank you for joining us over the past 2 days to recognize the recipients of HMSDC's most prestigious awards. These companies and advocates are setting new standards and establishing best practices for corporate supplier diversity programs and MBEs providing best-in-class service to their customers. I would also like to extend a huge thank you to the members of the Expo 2020 Steering Committee and the HMSDC staff. Let's give them all a round of applause. On behalf of the Minority Supplier Development Council, we commend those who have received corporate and MBE awards. Thank you all for attending Expo 2020, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Just remember, you simply can't separate HMSDC from business growth in Houston and beyond. Thank you.
Good morning again, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations again to all of our winners. We are now going into the trade show from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. So please visit our exhibit hall, speak to all of our exhibitors, upload your capability statements, and all the like. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the other side.